Yes, 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 I know the Canucks are playing a game in 3 hours. I'm going to be there. I'm going to watch it. And I did say this in the video earlier this afternoon as well, but if you're at the game and you happen to see a very short Filipino dude that happens to look and sound like me, please don't be afraid to say hi. With that being said, though, like in the video earlier this afternoon, we're going to be talking about the Elias Pettersson and JT Miller situation because last video, we spoke about Elliotte Friedman's spitballing. He went out there and discussed the idea of Elias Pettersson getting traded over to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram. Crazy idea, I know, it was ridiculous, wild, out of nowhere, but instead of continually piling on the Elias Pettersson trade talk, let's go out there and talk about what some other teams' fan bases are discussing in regards to the other guy. But before we dive into that, let's go into some extra comments, some tweets made by Taj that kind of clarify some of what Elliotte Friedman was talking about earlier in today's episodes of Donnie and Dolly. So, let's go out there firstly with Friedman clarifying comments somewhat. He mentions that JT Miller is a very demanding player, and he likes to push buttons. The Canucks are saying, you can be demanding, but there has to be a limit. While they want other players to be more acceptable and open to Miller being demanding. And, you know, if you've ever been in a professional working environment, which I'm assuming most of you have, I mean, I do have a lot of people in the audience on my demographics that are under the age of 18, so maybe they haven't worked a real job in the real world before, but if you have somebody in your workplace, he's supposed to be a peer. He's not above you, he's not a manager or a CEO or somebody, he's your equal. And if this person likes to push your buttons, you have somebody who's in a similar role as you, demanding you to do more stuff, I could understand why that might be seen as a problem by some. Now sure, it's good to have motivators in the room. It's good to have people to hold you accountable. That is very appropriate when it comes to wanting the best out of your product, wanting the best out of your employees and your peers. But is there a point where that gets too much? The Canucks are saying that there has to be a limit with the way Miller is demanding of his teammates. And of course, by teammates, I'm guessing maybe they're talking about Elias Pettersson, who really knows. But we also had ourselves another tweet by Taj. This is a comment made by Dollywall on today's Donnie and Dolly show too. We've heard the million rumors that their relationship has been not great over the years. You can ask Green, Boudreau, and Tocchet if you want. The management knows. The owner knows. The agents know. Everybody knows. It is not a secret. Oh my goodness. Duh, what a bomb dropped out there by Rick Dollywall. Maybe it's not new information, like this is totally something that we have seen before, but the way it's being talked about and beaten into the ground in this city over the past few days, oh my gosh. We're in some hot, dramatic times for Vancouver hockey right now, folks. And look, I'm not going to pretend like the biggest antidote to all of this is the team winning. If the team starts to win, if Pettersson and Miller both get 5 points today, this entire thing stops being an issue. But there are problems with the way the Vancouver Canucks have played the past few weeks and months even. So what do Canucks fans like to do? What do Canucks media like to do? We need to grasp at why that is and what problems have arisen either in the locker room or systematically in the way the team is trying to play. So this entire JT Miller thing has gotten big, and I wanted to go over onto the Pittsburgh Penguins subreddit to go out there and respond to an idea that they talked about. Take a look at this post made by Mr. Gardoki. JT Miller. No, this is not a rumor, just getting that out of the way. With that being said, there's mixed reports about whether or not JT Miller could be available. While I don't expect the Pens to be players for him should he become available, 1. Do you guys think Dubas should pursue him? 2. Pettersson, if no long-term injury, would obviously be the center of the deal. They're talking about Marcus Pettersson, not Elias Pettersson. What more would the Pens need to add? Could Dubas get away with adding Bunting to the deal? If so, what would Dubas need to add? Personally, I think that if Miller were available, Dubas should be very aggressive in trying to get him, even if it means having to trade a top prospect or a draft pick. To me, a player like Miller is one that you consider changing your current course of action on. Miller would open up a world of possibilities in the top 6, from either playing wing with Sid and Gino, centering Gino, or letting Sid and Gino be the first line with Rust. Again, I know this is not realistic, but just thought it would be fun to discuss. And the top comment says, yes, what the youth movement needs, a 31-year-old signed at $8 million, which we don't have space for even if Marcus Pettersson is part of the deal, for 3 more years. Brilliant. And 3 more years? Is JT Miller signed on for only 3 more years after this one? What the hell? It's 2024, 2025, right? Miller signed on until 29-30. Yeah, what are they talking about? Miller's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years on this contract, not 3. I think we are way past the time of acquiring 30-something-year-old veterans on the expense of future. Höglander, if cheap, would make much more sense from the Vancouver Canucks. And then Mr. Gardoki replies, I don't disagree, but Miller is a different animal. He's a player who brings an element the Pens have been missing. Maybe a player they never really had, and changes the dynamic of how this team would work. And this is also part of the conversation too. I wanted to start this video off by talking about all the JT Miller stuff, how he likes to push buttons and he likes to really be demanding of his team, and whether or not that's something that you could say fits with the personality of the top-tier superstar paid player like Elias Pettersson. Because I think that sort of motivation, it's fair to say that in some areas, in some situations, having a teammate who is as demanding and as accountable as a guy like JT will be a really positive thing. Like, maybe in a locker room full of vets like Sid, Gino, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, maybe JT Miller's really hard-ass teammate style is appropriate, and maybe it inspires the team to do better. I won't disagree with that idea. However, I think the risk is just a little bit too high for the Pittsburgh Penguins to take on a guy in Miller who already is going through a little bit of a tough spot in Vancouver, considering the way he's been performing and the way that the rumors have been starting up, and he had to take this leave of absence and everything, and of course we hope he is okay, but at the same time, now that he's back, there is a dialogue that has been opened up about him and his compatibility with the other top stars of the team. Is there enough of a buy-in from a team like Pittsburgh to say, okay, we can live with that. We are okay with trading for this guy if it means we get that 100-point player who's a hard-ass on all of his teammates. If it's Michael Bunting coming in exchange, I honestly do think the Vancouver Canucks would have a good reason to think about it, considering the fact that Michael Bunting, of course, he's a Penguin, but he wasn't a part of the Penguins when Rutherford and Alvin were over there. Bunting is having a pretty rough season this year. He's on pace for 36 points, which would be a pretty steep decline from the 60-point marker he had as a rookie back in 21-22. If that's still anywhere possible in his game, then I honestly don't think it's enough. Obviously, you would have to add a defenseman, Marcus Pettersson and Bunting, assuming no injury to Pettersson. I actually do think it's pretty fair for what the Canucks are trying to build and what they need for their team, but trading away JT, I mean, that's a really big piece right there. Even though there is a lot of controversy surrounding him and his name, he is still JT Miller, and he's still a guy that's going to add on so much value to any team, whether or not he actually brings positive things to the locker room or not. And of course, you know, I'm just saying all this from the speculative perspective of a fan who reads a whole bunch of Twitter in his free time. I'm not really saying that I know the guy personally, but that's sort of the reputation that has been cultivated by media members and fans in this city for years now. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of JT Miller getting traded over to the Pittsburgh Penguins in some sort of deal for Pettersson and or a Bunting. Do you think that's appropriate? Do you think that sort of a package fits here? Do you agree with a lot of the Penguins fans that say that this is not an idea that's worth thinking about? I thought it was interesting because we've already documented the fact that Miller was a Pittsburgh Penguins trade target in the past. It was 2 years ago when the Penguins were trying to acquire Miller at the trade deadline, and then they ended up trading for Mikael Granlund. And I was like, wait, that's not Miller. That's not JT. Where did this come from? And then JT Miller stayed with the Canucks, and he finished off that season there, and then he had 100 points the next year. So a lot of people were very happy to see him bounce back. Will we see something similar here with the Vancouver Canucks as they play off against the Colorado Avalanche later tonight? Honestly, I am worried, because for me personally, going to the game, I got good seats and everything, it's going to be great. I do have some Avalanche players on my fantasy teams. I've got 8 teams, and sprinkled throughout these teams, you've got Ross Colton, Arturi Lehkonen. Who knows if my guys are going to pop off today? I also got DeBrusk and Garland and Joshua and Sherwood on my other teams, and Quinn Hughes too, so hopefully my fantasy production goes well. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks and whether or not trading Miller to Pittsburgh is a good idea. Hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.